What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're here with Danetha Doe, and she has her website, DanethaDoe.com, and also she has Money and Mimosas, correct?
That is correct. moneyandmimosas.com.
All right. So now that's interesting, at least for me to hear Money and Mimosas. What came up with that concept?
I mean, who doesn't love money and who doesn't love mimosas? The idea is to make money fun and to provide information primarily to independent contractors and freelancers on how to create financial freedom on their own terms.
Okay, so what got you into, finance? Because the Wall Street Journal had made comments about different things you have done. So what got you into that?
Yeah, so I've always loved money. I've always seen it as magical. In fact, when I was 6, I wrote a poem and it was about money. And looking back on it, I see it as a download, something outside of me that came through me. And ever since then, I've always just been fascinated by money. I started my journey as an entrepreneur after I graduated from college. And I did that because I felt that that was the only way for me to create financial freedom. I wanted control over my schedule. I wanted to have limitless income potential, and entrepreneurship was the route for me. I studied economics in school, so I combined my schooling background with business and started a business helping small business owners with their bookkeeping and accounting. And that has transitioned into what I do now, which is a lot of speaking, a lot of writing on all different aspects of the economy, whether it's personal finance, whether it's reparations. I saw that you did a conversation with Marianne Williamson where she talked a little bit about that and all different aspects of the economy so that hopefully my readers can be informed about how to make the best decisions for their own personal life.
All right, so I'm glad you mentioned that you have education in economics, because that's great, because I have a lot of questions for you in related to that and African Americans in that area. Now, you have people that have put out that we are so broke, we don't have anything, we can't do much, because of our net worth. But yet I was reading on your site that you help people with self-worth and net worth. So do you believe Black Americans are so broke that we can't do anything almost for ourselves?
Our mission at Money and Mimosas is to elevate our readers' self-worth and net worth. And I've seen in my own personal experience as a Black woman that my net worth is directly tied to my self-worth, meaning my self-love, self-esteem, how I feel about myself. Am I willing to speak up for myself in a meeting? Am I willing to negotiate a larger contract on my behalf? A lot of that had to do with confidence rather than knowing the nuts and bolts of finances. Generally speaking, for Black Americans, I think that the conversation around confidence and money mindset is something that could help our community. Certainly, we can't brush a broad stroke across everyone, but I do believe that the conversation around, we have to talk about how many times our money has been stolen from us, whether that was during slavery, whether that was during Jim Crow, whether that was during Black Wall Street, whether that was during the Tulsa bombings. We've seen time and time again where we have actually built wealth. So I'll say to your question, are we just so broke because we don't get money? No, that's not the case. We've had several instances where we have done the work, created wealth on our own behalf, and then have had it taken from us. And over time, that does impact each and every one of our self-worth and confidence. When you don't believe that you're going to be able to hold on to something, you're not willing to do. Sometimes it's a deterrent. It does a lot to the psyche of a lot of people, and I think that that's a conversation that needs to be had within our community.
So basically what you're saying is, due to the legacy of racism, white supremacy, and the impact on us financially, what you're saying is that we kind of have this given up on trying to build a lot, because we saw Black Wall Street, many, acres and acres of land taken away from us, etc. Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
I'm not saying that we have given up, but there is an element. So money is interesting. If we study any of the most successful investors, so I was saying that if you study the most successful financial people, at least here within the United States, a lot of them will talk about the importance of investing in yourself and your mindset. One of the first books that I read about money was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I read that in high school, and it completely changed my perspective on how to build wealth. I didn't realize I had the power within my own mind. And then as I've gotten older, I've realized that there's additional power that we hold too, but some of it comes from our money mindset. And so even Warren Buffett would say the best investment you can make is in yourself. And so I wouldn't say that Black people have given up. Certainly we are resilient, and certainly we have created, as we know, we've created wealth time and time again. However, at the same time, there are elements where we may hold ourselves back because we don't believe it's possible for us. We hold ourselves back from dreaming big. I was talking to a woman. I was just on a show, Going From Broke, and it's a show about helping millennials attain financial freedom. And I was in Denver promoting the show, and I met a woman, a Black woman who's probably in her early 60s. And we were talking about finances. She comes from the tax accounting world. And so we were exchanging notes. And she shared a really interesting story with me. She said that when she first got married, she was 19 when she first got married, her biggest dream for herself was to move to the other side of town and to start a family. That was as big as she could dream because that was all she had been exposed to. And once she got older, she started to connect with other people. She started to see other things and realize, oh my gosh, I can dream bigger. And then her work started to shift to match that dream. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the legacy has dampened our ability to dream bigger. And when you dream bigger, your work ethic matches that. You start to elevate the way that you show up in the world to match that bigger dream. But if you don't have that dream, if you aren't exposed to it, it's impossible to elevate and level up.
Yeah, I can agree with you on basically how you think about yourself. I can agree. And the reason why I can agree with that is because, well, there's even the scripture in the Bible that teaches that, you know, whatever a man thinks, so is he or she. You know, you say she to that. How you feel about yourself do affect you all over, you know, the place, whether you're not only with money, with your personal relationships, it can affect your health, you know, etc.
I'm so glad you brought up health. There is such a huge correlation between fitness and finances. And I absolutely agree. The TD Jakes, if you're a fan of his, he also talks a lot about exposure and the fact that once we truly believe in ourselves, we take care of ourselves because we are dreaming bigger and we want to live whatever our best life is for us.
Right. So let me ask you another question about talking about economics. In the African American community, the marriage rate is really low. And do you feel that the lack of marriages in the Black community affects the finance? Because based on what I read, married people make more money. I think African Americans, they said on average, a married couple will make $72,000 versus a person that's single would make somewhere around maybe barely 40.
There is evidence to show that when you're in a committed relationship, whether that's marriage, legally being married, or you're in a committed relationship, yes, your ability to earn does increase. I mean, just there's two people, you're doubling your income. I just got engaged last year, and this January, my fiance and I sat down and talked about how we're going to build our empire together. So in addition to two people with two different incomes coming together, doubling it, and in fact, you're also doubling the work power behind it because you've got two people to help manage the task, and you have two brains now. So yes, it makes sense that the data makes sense around that. In terms of how that relates to the Black community and lower marriage rates, that is a lot. There's a lot to that in terms of. I think Black women overall are have the lowest marriage rates. If we want to splice it to look at, Black men tend to marry outside of the race rather than Black women. And so why is that? I'm not an expert on that. I think there's a lot that plays into that, whether it's confidence, self-esteem, there's a lot that goes into that. Legacy, even, I mean, we can go back to slavery times and we were not allowed to get married. Slavery may have been over 300 years ago, but that still does impact us on an energetic level. So I think that there's a lot to why that is the case.
Well, I wasn't more sort of correlating some of that. Basically, I was saying, because even if you talk about the aspect of interracial dating and marriage, I mean, in all races, is actually considered a minority. Most people marry within their own group. But what I was saying is, just from what I read, that marriages, it seemed like they have, like you expounded on a little bit, have more finances, but yet it's like people don't want to get married too much anymore. And that's what I was saying. Is that correlated to, is that hurting us financially within our community because we're refusing to get married now?
Well, I'm not familiar with us refusing to get married. I mean, certainly, generally speaking, we have a Christian background within the Black community, and marriage is definitely promoted within the Christian faith. And that's generally speaking. Of course, not every Black person is a Christian, but or identifies as such. So I'm not sure if we're seeing if Black people are refusing to get married. I will say in my work with student loans, so I do a lot of research around the student loan crisis within our country, that is forcing people to delay certain life milestones. So we are seeing people delay marriage, delaying purchasing a home, delaying having children because they've got a $500, $600, $700, $800, $900 monthly student loan bill, and it just financially doesn't make sense for them from their perspective to do some of these common life milestones. One of them is getting married. So I would be interested to look more into that. I'm not sure how it would impact the Black community specifically, but we are seeing people delay marriage as it relates to student loans.
Yeah, and you mentioned student loans. People are really getting deep into a lot of debt with that. Now, how do we get to this point, with being so much in debt as people? Because, you go to college, you're trying to get a degree, but then when you come out and you're making the money, but yet you're not really seeing it because you're paying off all this debt. I mean, how did we get to that point?
Oh my goodness. So currently 44 million Americans hold $1.5 trillion in student loan debts. This has increased 10 times over the last 8 years. So 8 years ago, it was $150 billion. Now we're at 1.5 trillion. That is the fastest growing debt within the country that's the fastest growing debt, period. How do we get to this point? Well, a lot of policy, honestly. We have to talk about the political nature around this. Tuition rates have increased, in some cases, 200%. At the very least, they've increased 30 to 50% in a lot of cases. And that is faster than inflation. Inflation grows 2% each year. So that's the cost of living. Wages increase 0.3% each year. All of these facts are from the Federal Reserve in St. Louis. So if we just look at that, just those numbers, the cost to go to school is outpacing your ability, the cost of living, the cost of milk, the cost of a gallon of gas, the cost of rent. It's also outpacing your ability to earn. So your wage, your raises each and every year are not keeping up with how fast tuition is rising. So that is a big piece of it, that the cost to go to school is sheerly just more expensive these days. How did that happen? Well, there's been a reduction in funding from states. So starting with Reagan, federal government started cutting back funding schools, and then states started cutting back as well. And so each university had to figure out, well, I've got to make up this money. I'm just going to jack up the prices on tuition and put the onus on the students. There's also been federal policies that have changed around the consumer protections around student loans. So things such as bankruptcy protection. Student loans are the only form of loan that you cannot discharge in bankruptcy. Now, someone may say, well, I don't want to file bankruptcy. That's not anyone's goal. Absolutely. However, bankruptcy protection is there to be a market force tether. It's supposed to keep prices at a certain rate, because if a company or a university, in this case, knows that someone could file bankruptcy and have their entire debt discharge, they will be a little bit more mindful about how much they're charging. They'll keep it in line with what the market can bear. And so by removing bankruptcy protection, we've essentially let the lid off of student loans, and universities can charge however much they want because there's no force tethering it down. And in addition to that, there's been truth in lending that's been removed from student loan policies, meaning, so when you take out a credit card, for instance, the bank has to be forthcoming about how much they're charging you in interest. That's not applied to student loans. Seems crazy, but that has actually been removed from student loans. So a number of things have been put in place to create the situation. And unfortunately, a lot of the narrative is blaming students, blaming millennials about how much they're spending and they can't manage their finances. But the conversation also needs to include all those points that I just mentioned.
So if a student don't want to get in this deep debt, do you feel they need to start with a community college first?
Absolutely. I think that that's a great path for a lot of people. If you can find scholarships, grants to cover your schooling out the gate at a 4-year college, great, go for it. However, if that's not an option for you, or if you're still trying to figure out what you want to do, I mean, the idea that at 17, 18 years old, we're supposed to take on $60,000+ in debt and have our whole life figured out based upon that decision is ludicrous to me. So take some time, definitely do 2 years. That's what my fiance did. He went back to school. He started at a 2-year community college in Oakland and then transferred to a 4-year degree. So yes, that's definitely an option, a good one.
Yeah, because I had a lady come on before and was saying that if you can go to community college, get the basics done, then transfer from the community college to the university, they say you'll save a lot of money.
Yes, absolutely. And thankfully, the quality of education at community colleges is fantastic. The professors are amazing. A lot of these schools have incredible resources, almost as good as a 4-year college, if not better, or at least the same. So yeah, you're saving a lot of money. And also you're taking some time to truly give yourself the space to figure out what you want. Maybe you want to explore taking a ceramics class, for instance, which may not seem to relate to your career, but who knows what inspiration that may spark. So yes, you're saving money and you're also giving yourself the freedom to explore and be able to dream bigger.
Well, one thing also, Danetha, I want to ask you about is, because you're in economics, I'm a firm believer that the biggest issue in the African-American community and why we don't have money is poor money management. Now, maybe you can expound on that, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but do we have poor money management skills?
No. I will say, just to answer you directly, I will say that is a common misconception. And certainly there are folks in every group that can learn how to manage their money differently and more effectively. I will say with the Black community, African-American community, it goes back to our money mindset and self-confidence. Our behaviors around money are no different than those in higher socioeconomic backgrounds. For instance, I had a client who worth a lot of money, a lot meaning, because that's all relative, $50 million, that ballpark. So a lot of money. Going through his finances, there are a ton of areas that he's overlooking. And I was brought in to help clean up what he was spending his money on. And he had the space, of course, to be able to do that because he had disposable income. But that didn't mean that his behaviors around money were any better, and how he earned his money had a lot to do with his previous connections and opportunities presented to him. So the money management piece, again, we can all learn. It's like fitness. You can learn how to hit the gym a little bit harder. You can learn how to do different exercises a little bit more effectively. We can all learn how to be more effective with our finances, myself included. I learn something new every day. However, to say that the overall net worth of the African-American community is related to poor money management skills is allowing the system to have a cop-out, because the system is what needs to be put to task as to why our group has not been able to progress financially as fast as other groups.
Right. No, that part I agree with. You know, them basically holding us back. You know, and that's no. The reason why I brought up money management is because we will apply, and I've just seen this with a lot of us. We will apply things to a lot of materials. You know, we'll make sure we look good, drive good, etc. Maybe we can, instead of going buy certain things we're buying, maybe we can hold that money back and, you know, pull ourselves, you know, together in a group economic way to create. For instance, I'm a big proponent of creating schools
Sure.
for our children due to just the failure of public school system. And what frustrates me is I will see us at the Galleria going to the Louis Vuitton store, going to this store, that store, instead of pulling our resources together as a people and doing for our community. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. What area are you from? Where are you based?
Houston.
I was going to say, so the Galleria. I used to live by the Galleria in 7th grade on Westheimer.
Okay.
So fun. Yeah, I know that area. So two things to your point. Absolutely. There is definitely room for all of us to take a step back and reconsider how we are using this resource. It's a tool. Money is a tool to be able to create personal financial freedom and also to elevate the collective economy, particularly the African-American economy. Now, why don't we make those decisions? That is something that we can peel back the layers on. I like to say, again, related to health and fitness, we all know to eat whole foods. We all know to cut back on sugar, cut back on carbs, but we don't necessarily do that all the time. And some of us don't do it as regularly as we should. Why is that? Even though we know that information, well, it goes back to our behaviors, our beliefs around ourselves, and of course, the system at place if we're talking about economics. So when it relates to money, we all know to spend less than what we earn. We all know that saving is great. We all know that we want to elevate our communities. I mean, you're talking about schools. I can't imagine any Black family doesn't want better schools in their community. The same person that's going to Louis Vuitton at the Galleria, if she has a 6 or he has a 6, 7-year-old daughter, I'm sure they want better schools. But why don't they make that decision when they're making that purchase? There's a couple of things. They may not make that connection, first and foremost. This goes back to exposure. If you don't believe that you can create impact within your community, you don't know the levers that you have control over in order to reinvest within your community, you don't even know that that's possible. So they may not even know that the way they're spending money is also impacting their child in that way and their exposure to better education. The other piece is I do a fun workshop around uncovering your money love language, which really helps people understand why they spend the way that they do. And it all goes back to behavioral economics. It all goes back to money mindset, what we feel about ourselves, what we want in our life. And when we talk about spending on material things, it's easy to demonize that, and I totally get it. But we also need to understand why we make those decisions, because if we demonize it without truly peeling back the layers as to why we want that, then we're just putting a Band-Aid on the situation without really figuring out how we can work with this desire. Our spending is just a reflection, from my perspective and from what I've seen when I do these types of talks. Our spending habits are a reflection of a deeper desire, a need to be loved. And that may sound out there if this type of conversation is new to you, but it's the way we spend money is a reflection of core wounds and a deep desire. So when I see someone who's spending a lot on material things, and a lot is relative, but in their situation, it's a lot given their income and what they're spending the rest of their money on, I start to wonder about, okay, you are probably craving feeling respected. You're probably craving feeling nurtured, perhaps, or honored. And if we look at those two of those words, especially respected and honored, a lot of that has been taken from the African American community. We day in and day out are disrespected, whether it's through microaggressions or overtly. So I start to question, okay, how is buying this filling that need for you? And can we start talking about what that desire is? Why do you feel you need to be respected? Why do you feel you need to be honored? And how can we do that in a way that's more financially healthy. Buying a Louis Vuitton bag is fine if you have the means to do it, but if you're in a situation where it is putting a stress on your finances, then that's when we need to start having that conversation around how can we redirect these spending habits. And once someone makes that connection, they're spending, once they start being mindful around why am I making these behaviors, that they will start to shift it. And so I don't like to believe that it's about poor money management. I really feel that it's a lot about lack of awareness and a lack of understanding of one's own self, one's own needs.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is, due to our journey in America dealing with racism, microaggressions, white supremacy, that is greatly not only physically affected us, but it affected us mentally and emotionally. So we spend our money or don't spend our money on things that we should or should not due to that. That's basically what you're getting at?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it does have an impact on us. PTSD is very real, and PTSD impacts all aspects of your life, including your finances.
Okay, so on your website, people can go there and you offer counseling service, financial counseling services, or what do you offer there?
So everything that we offer to our readers is completely free. So at moneyandmimosas.com, it's all free content. I do all free events, all free workshops for anyone that wants to learn how to create financial freedom on their own terms. So we cover things around how to save money, how to manage your money, what are the best interest-bearing checking accounts, for instance. There's an article that comes out this week. We talk about money market accounts, talk about investing, and then we also talk about starting your own business. The freelance market is something that we focus a lot on. So if someone identifies as an independent contractor or freelancer, we have a ton of information around that. We do not offer counseling services. If you do email us, we have a ton of experts that I can connect you with. Just from my work, I connect with a lot of financial experts. But our work is solely content-based, giving the community the information that they need to make the best decisions for themselves.
Okay, so if anyone would be interested, you can go to danethadoe.com. Please go there and check out her website. Do you have on your website, you have an email where people can ask you questions?
Yeah, so actually the best site is moneyandmimosas.com. Every week I send out a free newsletter with money tips for the week, and that you can sign up for that on moneyandmimosas.com. When you sign up for that, all of those emails come directly to me, and you can submit a question when you sign up.
Okay, one last question before we go. Do you believe reparations will solve the financial problems of Black America?
I believe it will do. I believe that it'll be a big part in getting us closer to equity.
But it won't fully solve our problem? No.
But it needs to happen in order for us to get to equity.
Okay, because the rest of it is systemic, correct?
The rest of well, reparations would go far in addressing some of the systemic issues, leveling the playing field, starting to level the playing field that has been just completely obliterated for so long. But the other piece goes back to what we were talking about earlier around money mindsets and self-worth and self-confidence. So what I would love to see if I were in politics or in a policymaker, I would love to see reparations paired with events and information around how to believe in yourself, how to dream bigger, self-esteem, self-confidence, those types of things. I would love to see education, financial education paired with reparations.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go to both websites. We'll make sure to put them down there and you can go see both of them. And she can definitely respond, read the newsletter. I mean, I know that she'll give you some great information. And guys, I'm asking questions. A lot of questions that I'm asking, it comes from different things that you guys have said to me. So anytime I get someone on, like Danetha here, I will ask those questions. So Danetha, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great talking to you.
Thanks so much, Phillip. I had a great time.